Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. For all those who are watching, you're watching World This Morning, which is a Hashmi on PTV World today. It's a Monday. It's a very beautiful, clear day outside with a hint of windy and chilly since we're entering the most awaited season of the year, let's say winter. It is my favorite, but as we are entering winter and as much as excited we are about it, we also have to be, okay with the fact that winter comes along with a lot of viruses and everything. And people like me with weak immune systems have already got flu and other allergies, which is why one of the reasons Shazad is not present today. Get well soon, Shazad, and we will have to proceed without you for today. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, we've just started the week. I hope the week goes well for all of you. And without further ado, we don't have top stories for the hour today because the topic that is under discussion today is really interesting and amazing for me as well, because the guests here are so appropriate to talk about it, and I cannot wait to share all of this with you. So just to start with, today we are all across the globe, well, in most parts of the globe, let's say, a lot of people are observing White Cane Safety Day today. And what is that? Is why we're here, and we're going to tell you about it. So basically, a white cane, as most of you must know, is a walking stick that people who are probably visually impaired or have other disabilities often use to walk with it. And lined with that, we have actually a guest who's been on the show before as well, twice or thrice, and he's one of our favorites. On my right-hand side, we have been joined by Mr. Zulkarnain, who happens to be the first visually impaired psychologist from South Asia and also the chief executive of Potihar Mental Health Services. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for being here.
Assalamu alaikum.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
And please excuse me for my bad throat, but this is all the energy that I have today. Next to Mr. Zulkarnain, we have with us another psychologist who has studied from abroad and from Pakistan as well. She's practicing in Pakistan right now. She's none other than Dr. Rohma Shahid, a clinical psychologist. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Walaikum salam.
Our pleasure, absolutely. And next to Ms. Roma, we have Dr. Masoodul Hassan, who happens to be an eye surgeon. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Thank you for being here.
And thank you very much for the invitation.
Now, all of you are sort of related in the fact that, Mr. Zulkarnain is a psychologist as well as he's a visually impaired person. So he can tell us that story, that side of the story that we cannot understand, right? And you happen to be an eye surgeon and you a psychologist. And just a while ago, when we were talking with Ms. Roma before the show, she told me that a lot of visually impaired people come to you for therapy as well, right? So let's start with the history of white cane. Mr. Zulkarnain, let's start with you.
Thank you. White cane is a symbol of, it seems as a symbol of independence
Right.
and empowerment for people with visual impairments. It started in 1921. A French photographer, he got visual impairment in his later age.
Yeah.
He started working with the white cane. Initially, he used to use black cane,
Okay.
but International Lion Clubs, they painted that black cane into white.
Okay.
And since 1931, it was known as a white cane. And since 1964, Federal Union of Blind
Yeah.
in USA, they declare it as a International White Cane Safety Day.
Okay.
Since 1964, it's been observed in USA and most part of the world.
Okay.
In 80s, 80s decade was declared as a disability decade.
Okay.
Since then, in most part of the world, it's called declared as White Cane Safety Day.
Okay.
And since from 81 in Pakistan, White Cane Safety Day was observed, and
Okay.
till now it's been observed.
So in Pakistan, it's being observed since the 80s, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're also holding a cane right now. Can you show it to our viewers? And
is
one more
white.
question. So do only visually impaired people use a cane, or probably who have an impairment with the hearing as well, or anyone with a disability can
This
use a
is
cane?
white.
Full white cane.
Full white,
Yeah.
right? People with visual impairment carry full white cane day.
Okay, okay.
People with visual impairment and hearing impairment carry a cane which is white from
From the
bottom,
center,
and
okay.
top of the part of the cane are white, rest is red. People with visual and hearing impairment carry this white and red cane.
Okay.
And it's differ from its sizes differ because some people carry long white cane, some people carry
Shorter.
short white cane, but it depends where you are walking. If you are walking outdoor, one needs to have carry a long white cane. If you are walking in a crowdy area or indoor, the people usually carry a short white cane.
Okay.
But it's because if one is carrying long white cane,
Yeah.
you know that means he need more mobility because he feel
Okay.
more objects. And if one individual is carrying short white cane, that means he's having less mobility issues, he is more independent, and he can move freely.
Okay, perfect, perfect. So moving on to Ms. Roma over here. Ms. Roma, you know, not a lot of people are actually naturally born with visual impairment. So even for those who are naturally born with it and for those who later on develop a visual impairment, we'll talk about social attitudes later on, but first comes family right.
Yeah.
So there's a phase of rejection or denial from the family as well, you know, obviously because they're not expecting their special, you know, their so precious child to have an impairment. So what is the appropriate behavior of the family that should not discourage the person who is actually facing the disability?
So if you're a parent of someone who is visually impaired, or if yourself are someone who is visually impaired, either partially or total visual impairment, there are going to be stages of grief that you would go through.
Absolutely.
So taking a person from initial denial, moving towards anger, again towards social withdrawal, some phases of depression, and eventually the person accepts the condition that they're in.
Right.
But the acceptance stage is the last one, going through a lot of phenomena and then eventually accepting it. But the thing is that if you successfully go through all these stages, you can obviously help yourself and the people around you.
Right.
The most important thing that the parents need to know is that they're not the only people who are going through this. So don't be afraid to reach out towards people who are having the same experiences and going through the same things, to get more information, advice, and encouragement.
Okay, brilliantly said. Now, moving on to Dr. Masood over here. Dr. Masood, what counts as blindness? I mean, is it only you're blind only if you're born with it, or does it develop later on as well? What counts as that?
Well, the first of all, the blindness word, this is a word we used in the past,
Okay.
but now we have, changed it to, visually impaired.
Absolutely.
And then we, the categorize into a partial sight impairment or a severe sight impairment. So, the top causes of the visual, impairment,
yeah.
it is basically the glasses thing, and the cataract, and
right.
also the eye conditions which comes with the age, especially the glaucoma,
Right.
and the macular degeneration.
Okay, so one more thing, Dr. Masood, it's sort of funny as well. So my siblings who are younger than me, they're always on the phone or laptop. So there's one thing my mom tells them: you are going to go blind if you keep watching so many movies. Does that actually happen? Does an LCD or being exposed to so much light actually, affect your visual impairment, or does it actually make you visually impaired eventually?
Well, yes, it does have an,
Impact.
impact on the side, because the mobiles and the gadgets, they have radiations which can cause the damage to the retina, slowly slowly
So
and
you
very
can
gradually.
develop an impairment, maybe.
Yes, it
There are
can
chances.
cause, basically what happens that the condition which we used to see, in 70 years of the age, now we are seeing them very early.
Oh, okay.
So the parents should have to look into it, and also try to keep their the children away from the gadgets.
Okay, absolutely.
this is
Since
very
we are
important.
talking about gadgets, now we are observing White Cane Safety Day over here in most parts of the world, in fact, today. So a few years back, when we were not a tech-savvy nation, let's say, a lot of people, who were visually impaired actually had to sort of depend on other people for, if they were interested in reading, to probably read things out to them. There are scriptures for, of course, people who are visually impaired, which can help them in reading. But since the gadgets have improved so much, I want to ask Mr. Zulkarnain over here, do you feel like it has actually made a better impact on your life? Having gadgets and
Technology, basically, it's enable,
Yeah.
especially a life of visual impairment, people with visual impairment and people with hearing impairment. If one has sensory impairment,
Yeah.
these gadget helps a lot, because initially we used to read through braille, but that carry lot of space. That's difficult process.
Also,
People
it's a
don't
primitive
understand.
method now, right?
Yeah, it's very difficult to read write in braille. But
Right.
when since 1995, I'm using computer, and it make my life more easier, not more easier, but it made me more independent and empowered, and usually it made more independent people living with visual impairment, because now people are using Android phone. There are a lot of gadgets, because through those gadgets they can navigate, especially Google Map. It helps a lot, because through
Absolutely.
that one can find out the way, and
Right.
that these scientific methods are quite useful for people living with visual impairment.
Okay, perfect. So, Ms. Roma, coming back to you, I know a person who happens to be very close to me, no names, of course, but he's the most brilliant kid in school, and he is the most good-looking kid I know for a fact. But later on, when he turned 18, he started developing an impairment in his left eye, and eventually, with time, he's actually losing sight from his left eye. With that, I feel like he's becoming adult student. He's not that person anymore. So what sort of effect does it put on your mind if you're actually going towards a visual impairment? I mean, we've talked about family as well, but as a person himself, when you have to face that, what does it do to your mind?
Well, of course, there is a well-established literature and fact that poor eye health is related to mental health as well.
Okay.
So if you are either partially blind or total blind, you do face different phases of depression, and with that, there is some increased level of anxiety as well. And later on, if your anxiety increases to further more, there are symptoms of hallucinations that can be developed as well,
Okay.
leading to other disorders such as schizophrenia, etc., etc. But again, we need to see the person as a total, because see, once you lose your vision or are affected by visual impairment, you're not the same person anymore. And we need to understand that we are dealing with a whole new person over here. And the way they used to do things, the way you used to talk to people, it's going to be different. And we should expect that. And we should, and again, we should treat them in a different way.
Yeah, but then again, we're sort of, I think, ignoring the fact that we're talking about a perfect situation here. It is still a taboo, right? You both are psychologists, I think
Exactly.
you guys can tell me.
Yeah.
Is
It is
it
actually
stigmatized still?
It is still stereotypical, and not with people who are not visual blind, but also the people who suffer from this.
Right.
Do consider them as being an outsider, as being not able to adjust in the community. So that's where our role comes in order to help them and provide them with enough counseling and help and support to make them an effective member of the
Do you
society.
agree with that, Mr. Zulkarnain, as a psychologist?
Because I think if one gets developed visual impairment, it's trauma for that
Yeah.
individual.
Right.
Not only for that individual, because it his or her family also, and people feel uncomfortable going to a psychologist or psychiatrist,
Right.
because they think it's usually insane people, people with
Absolutely. Yeah.
intellectual impairment usually
Right, that's the
visit
concept we have
psychologists,
in
and
here,
that's
right.
why people don't consult psychologists or psychiatrists. It's I must reiterate this fact. It's very important and very pertinent. Every individual of the world needs psychological help, or it's perfectly okay to visit a psychologist or psychiatrist. To everyone can have mental health related issues. It's important to highlight those issues, and
Right.
it's important to visit psychologists and psychiatrists. It's healthy also.
Absolutely, it is totally healthy to talk about the problems that you're facing with
Exactly.
someone, right? Now, Dr. Masood, just a while ago we were talking about all the stimuli that can, develop your visual impairment later on in life. Now let's talk about the factors that actually develop them naturally as well. Is it genetic? Is it, does it get transferred? If your parents are, or maybe if your grandparents are visually impaired, are you visually impaired as well? And does it happen a lot? Does it very much occur in interfamily marriages as well?
Yes, it does. Especially the genetic, the conditions. One of the condition is called, retinitis, retinitis pigmentosa. It can, transfer, into the family.
Okay.
So we try to, the consult the patients, try not to do the marriages among the cousins, so that it will not pass on to the further generations.
So do you inform your patients as well that this is not a healthy option? Interfamily marriages, do you inform your patients that it is not?
Yes, we do. We do. We do inform them. So this is the only way to control those the conditions which can come from the families and the treatable things. If I talk about the figures, the 285 million of the patients are blind all over the world, and and out of the 285, the 29 millions are the total blind, and 246 million are the partially blind, and these 246 millions are totally preventable, and it is avoidable.
Okay, perfect. So it's great that you mentioned it. So when you're partially visually impaired, does that mean that you can, since you said it can be cured and you can go back to being normal, or what are the most chances, if you are more chances of going back to normal, or maybe you can go totally visually impaired? What are the more chances?
The chances depends on basically our aim is to prevent the blindness, and the main aim is to, if we can do the screening on the time. So if we inform the parents that once their child start their school in 4 years or 5 years of age, so they must get the primary screening of their eyes, with the eye doctor. So if suppose if they have the problem with their sight, so either it can be fixed with the glasses, or if they have a turn in their eye, so either it can be fixed again with the glasses, or if they or if they need an operation, so we can do that in time.
So
And
okay, so
then-
you're saying if, please carry on.
And then again, the other the causes of the partial sight impairment is the glaucoma and the cataract. So we advise the patients to get another the sight check when they are above 40 and 50 years of age.
Okay. So with aging, it's normal, right? I mean, you do expect when you are probably 40 plus, you get to develop visual impairment, partially maybe?
If it is due to glaucoma or a
Different
cataract.
reasons to it. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Mr. Zulkarnain, you, since I mentioned in the beginning of the show as well, you happen to be the first visually impaired psychologist of South Asia. Now, for a person to grow up in a society like Pakistan, where I have to say, since I don't have, thankfully, I don't have anyone who is visually impaired in my family, so I would not directly know how to deal with such people, right? So, belonging to a society where it's not very widely accepted, how were you able to pursue your dreams?
Okay, thank you. It's a very important question. First of all, I would like to say one important fact, that is, visual impairment is not a disease.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lifestyle. Sensory impairment is not a disease. It's a lifestyle.
Okay.
If one has got visual impairment, that means his or her needs are different. It's society. It's their responsibility to make infrastructure more accessible, inclusive.
Absolutely.
Because I mostly tell people I cannot see, but I can walk.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I can read, I can write. And initially, though it was difficult, because people usually it was habitual of people. They call visually impaired people Hafiz Saab. I tell them, okay, no, this is I'm not Hafiz. This is my name. You can call my name.
Okay.
With the passage of time, if they see me working my own daily chores, and they've realized, no, he's an independent individual, and we don't
So
need
you're
to
saying
call.
a lot of people were actually bullying you as well?
It happens in all over the world, but in third world, it's quite common. And another thing I must say, that because there are three approaches to deal with the disability. One is charity model. Usually they bully, or they call it, it's by will of nature, something like that. And second is medical model. Usually they say, okay, it's a disease, treat it, made them like others, it that one get better.
Okay.
Third is right based approach. If you enable the society, you enable the environment, people can perform better. And if they need any rehabilitation, rehabilitate them. But it's societal, it's their responsibility to understand their need. It's not their individual's responsibility to cope up with society.
With the
They can
society,
they can get medicated or stuff like that, because this is very important. Lot of people visit lot of doctors, instead of teaching their kids, they visiting doctors, and they wasted their time. It's important to educate health practitioner. They could tell the people how they can get assistive devices, and they can be a fully functional individual.
and independent.
An
more
independent
Right, but
individual.
that's great, Mr. Zulkarnain. That is because you took a stand, and you actually, you were steadfast in whatever you wanted to achieve, which is why, alhamdulillah, you're living a very rewarding life. But Mr. Omar, a lot of people are not actually, very brave like Mr. Zulkarnain is. So what would you tell them, in order to live a rewarding life with a disability or with an impairment, how should they go about it?
Again, it all comes back to the fact that this is something really stereotypical,
Yeah.
but don't be afraid to reach for help, because that's
Okay.
the only way we can help them. But on our part, it's more important to spread awareness regarding this, that there's someone who can listen to them and help them with the most appropriate way possible. There are different types of therapies that we can help people with who are dealing with visual impairment and
Right.
depression, visual impairment and anxiety. And the most important thing that comes with visual impairment is social withdrawal. So I think that's the most important thing that people should be working on,
Right.
because that can lead to isolation. Again, it's a whole new lifestyle that you're adopting, and sometimes people do not want to see you that way. So your friends need to be patient with you, but
Absolutely.
sometimes they're not. So that kind of makes you go into social withdrawal. Again, go to a psychologist. That's the right person who can help you with everything.
Yes, since we are talking about social withdrawal, now this is a question for all three of you, and I want you to answer turn by turn. So, Mr. Zulkarnain, just a while ago you mentioned inclusivity. Let's talk about it. What sort of inclusivity are you asking about? I mean, talking about. You guys must have some demands. I mean, I remember you being here earlier, and you were talking about infrastructure inclusivity. When you go to parks, there must be separate kinds of benches or fences, etc. Talk about it, please.
Okay. First of all, I must say that I want to answer a bit your earlier question, because it's acceptance of both parts,
Yeah.
Yeah.
parents and individual. If they accept it's okay to be a develop a visual impairment, we can live independent life.
Okay.
Then thing gets easier. It's acceptance at societal part also.
Right.
Society must realize these are equal individuals like others. It's state's responsibility to fulfill the needs of those individuals, to safeguard their rights.
Right.
For
Okay.
instance, to create awareness about White Cane Safety Day,
Yeah.
they need to develop, curriculum about the individual living with disabilities. They must give us allocate seats for us. There must be allocation of budget. They must include about something about White Cane in the curriculum of driving license. That is very pertinent, because through these measures they can create awareness.
Definitely.
And there must be social security system. There must be special CNIC must be enforced, because without enforcing special CNIC, society cannot be aware, state cannot be aware how many individual living with disabilities are living their life in the country.
Right.
What
And
is
what are the
popula-
needs as
what
well,
what are
right?
their needs? That's and these things must be incorporated in Nadra's form,
Right.
passport form, and other forms. And census Washington group of questionnaire must be incorporated in the census and all surveys.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Now, since we are still talking about inclusivity, I know that in countries other than Pakistan, there's a zebra crossing, right? For people who are walking, they can pass
Absolutely.
by.
Tactile
But
one,
there's a
yeah.
special zebra crossing for people who are impaired, visually impaired, probably.
Tactile zebra
yeah,
crossing.
but that's not in Pakistan, is it?
That's not in Pakistan. There are signal. They create alarms. There are
Yeah.
signal. They create vibration.
Right.
Those are not in Pakistan. Only in Islamabad you'll find only one building
Okay.
fully accessible. That is World Bank building.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
Rest of the buildings were not accessible.
So if there's one, of course, we can build on other things as well. I mean, why only in Islamabad, then why only one building? The curriculum should be adopted all across Pakistan. Now, with the same question coming to you, Ms. Roma, how can we, make them feel more included and accepted?
Well, Sir Turkanen answered it really amazingly. We need to respect these people, first of all. We need to teach each and every person to respect people who have some sort of disability. Again, what he said, it's not a disability. You're just like differently able. You're unique in something else. So respect these differences.
Okay.
Respect the differences, appreciate the similarities, and take it from there. We need to understand that we as a nation need to take into account everyone's abilities and disabilities and
Not
then move
everyone
forward.
is the same, right? Of course,
Exactly.
you have to keep up with people's pace, right?
That's
now,
true.
coming to you, Dr. Masood, what do you think that how should we make them accepted?
Well,
Make them feel accepted.
mean as a part of the doctor, because it is the first the contact is with the doctor if they have any sight impairment. So we also advise them to use the white cane because it is not helping them, but it's also helping the people around them
To
as
recognize,
well. Yeah. So because the patients think that if they use the white cane, so they will be away from the society. So as a doctor, we also try to counsel them. If they have a sight impairment to a stage, it is good for them, and it is the safety for them as well, and also the people around them will also know that the person has an issue with the sight,
Right,
and the
Needs
people
extra
are
care
now
probably, right.
helping them as well.
Okay, that's true. But individually, of course, we have to play a part as well. Now, let's talk about this one particular thing. I'm pretty sure all of you will agree with me. So, I myself have studied most of my life in Pakistan, studying the Pakistani education system and the curricula and the syllabi. And I know for a fact that when you start to read about visual impairment or anything, that is only when you probably go to the college level and you choose pre-medical, and then you choose medicine, and then it's the only way that time that you're studying eye diseases or probably visual impairment. But I feel like there's a very important and a very big need for the policymakers to probably make it important for students to study on how to live in a society with different segments.
I completely agree with you because there was only one lesson about Helen Keller.
Yes.
But they have excluded that lesson in 2002 2003 from the
Yeah.
syllabus.
Okay.
There were other role model, and their lives must be taught to the students. If they read about and there is another way of doing thing, a more inclusive education system. That is the only way to make society more inclusive. If child born with any visual impairment, any disability, he's living his or her is he or she is living with disability, and school stamp that discrimination. It's important to make our schools inclusive. From there we can get we can be, this dream could be achieved. I mean, we can make our society more inclusive. If we don't include 15%, 15.4% in the decision making powers in all spheres of life, that means we are not complete society.
Exactly, exactly. We're broken in segments, right? And you know, that is the age actually when a child is learning, you know, in the early ages, and especially in primary school. And that is when they should be imparted this sort of knowledge that when they grow up to be responsible citizens. Now, very quickly, Ms. Roma, you know, the same thing to you.
Yeah.
And then a very quick message, if you have, any of you has to the people. Go on,
Of course.
please.
Well, again,
this
I would
special
agree
day.
to this that this should be a part of the curriculum, but even if it's not, even if we're not learning about different disorders or disabilities at an early stage, I think it's very important for the curriculum makers to teach the students at school regarding awareness about how to deal with these people. For example, you know, just a few points that if you're in a room with someone who is visually impaired, just say hello in the first place. Tell them that you're there. Tell them that you're present in the room. If you're talking to them, just approach to them. Sit at the same level. If they're sitting, you can sit down. If you're standing up, you should stand up as well. And don't be afraid to use words like look, see, you know, these kind of things. So with these basic little things, you can make them feel more comfortable.
Do you have something to add, Dr. Saab? Very quickly,
Yeah,
please.
please, like you know what I advise to the family, the family members of a person who has a sight impaired, to if they want to give them a tea or a glass of water, so present them just in front of them, rather than from the side, because they have a sight impairment on the side in most of the conditions.
Right, right.
But they can see straight ahead. So if you give them a tea from the side, so they won't be seeing it.
And that can only be achieved through educating people
That's
for
right.
that. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. It was such a brilliant and enlightening discussion. I absolutely loved it, and I
True.
hope it helped all of you guys who were watching as well. Is there something you need to say, Mr. Subramanian?
Because thank you for, I must say thanks to PTV World. You people gave due regard to these issues. I must say, accept your child if he or she has visual impairment.
Yeah.
Acceptance is the only way to
move
rehabilitate your
Absolutely,
child.
absolutely, brilliantly said. Now we're heading out to a very short break. We will be back before you know it with the second segment. Stay tuned to PTV World. Good morning.
Sitar is a plucked string instrument used in Pakistani classical music. The instrument flourished under the Mughal Empire. Sitar is named after the Persian word setar, meaning three strings. It derives its distinctive timbre and resonance.
Welcome back to World This Morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Shiza Hashmi only today, since Shazad is not joining us. And for all those who just joined in the first segment, we were discussing International White Can Safety Day, because it was today, and we had some brilliant guests over. And if you missed it, you can watch the repeat at 5 past 11 in the night. But moving on, in this segment, we are going to discuss something that is very important, but it's sort of neglected in Overseen as well. Now, on the 17th of October, a few days from now, we will be observing International Ethics Day all around the globe. And what is the significance of that? I mean, when you hear the word ethics, this is something you've studied in your syllabi a lot. But do you actually know the meaning of it? Does it actually mean the same for everyone? I mean, my personal belief is that ethics is your personal moral values and beliefs. So it should be different for me. It should be different for my, let's say, producers, my cameramen. So that is what we're talking about today with a person who is very aptly here to talk about it. Mr. Sajid Aslam on my right-hand side, who happens to be the head of ACCA Pakistan and who is a professional accountant. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So how do you feel today?
No, it's great. It's quite exciting as well while we are talking about the ethics, which is quite close to my heart as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, since I was just talking a few seconds ago, is it true that I feel like ethics is different for everyone? Is there a standardized, you know, system that, okay, this is what counts as ethics in Pakistan, or this is what counts as ethics in the US?
I think when we define ethics, definitely there is a certain component which goes to the individual personality. But when we talk about the society, we talk about the profession, then that society or profession should represent consistently a certain behaviors which they can be identified with. For example, if you talk about Japanese, you will talk about the hardworking. If you talk about Chinese, you will talk about the result orientation. These are the work ethics which they have developed over the period. And similarly, if you come down to Pakistan and you talk about what is our ethical values, so you will find different profession talking about different things, different individuals talking about different things
now,
as
for
well.
a journalist, some ethical values might be different for a person who's probably an accountant or a businessman, right?
Oh, that's fine. But that profession, that if somebody is journalist, so they have to represent those ethical values consistently. The word consistently is more importantly.
Right.
It's a behaviors which we learn over the period, which we practice over the period. It's important in the education, but it's more important in the training side of it. And that's a key representation. Like every journalist is a representation of the journalist as a whole. It's a community. Similarly, professional accountants are the representation of the professional accountant. But above all, as a Pakistani, we are representation of the Pakistanis, right? So then if I'm working abroad or if I'm interacting with somebody, they should see me consistently demonstrating certain behavior which they can relate back to Pakistan. Just giving you a most important area which right now we are struggling, or we see that big struggle, is the CPAC itself, where the Chinese are coming and working with us and they are finding it difficult just because they have altogether different work ethics.
Absolutely.
And then when they work with Pakistanis, they struggle that what are the work ethics there?
Professionalism,
because
right?
The professionalism, everybody is demonstrating altogether different type of behavior there, where if they are working, they have got a 7 defined work ethics which they use to really judge a person whether the person is working in the right direction. Laziness, that's something which is written there, is a crime there. They clearly state that in a work ethic, it's a crime.
Well, if it was a crime in Pakistan, everyone would be in jail. I personally myself as well.
Definitely. Like these are the things, how we are using those 8 to 10 hours in the work. Are we generating results or activity?
Is it productive or not?
Exactly. And if you go back at, there was in 2013-14, I was talking about issue around Pakistan, character or capacity. So when we evaluated even using the data, capacity is not our issue, it's a character. We are really, really up there to deliver something which we are supposed to. Can people trust us? If I make a promise, will people rely on that I'll keep that promise? These are the very small things which we see in everyday life. And these are the fundamental dilemmas which can be overcome only with the trainings, and then not training in a school or college, but in our families as well, in our social interactions as well. How we will handle these dilemmas, how we will really see whether it's ethical or legal. There are a lot of things which are legal, but may not be ethical.
Absolutely.
So there are certain dilemmas which we need to understand, be aware of, and then create an appropriate response to those.
No, but so, you know, I do happen to know that segment of the society as well, of the, you know, of people who work, who would actually forget their ethics to achieve something greater, which is momentary. Let's say it's materialistic, okay, it's for a moment only, they will forget about it, they will get over it eventually. But is it worth it to compromise their ethics for something?
In the long run, no.
Yeah.
The answer is very, very clear. In the long run, no. You might find some short-term gains, but as an individual and as a society, we will be losing that. Like in ACCA, ethics is a part of the profession. Not only that they have to comply, they have to learn that. More importantly, they have to demonstrate that. And if they miss out on that, they will lose their qualification. That's the beauty of the ACCA.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's
So
called
strict rules.
It's a strict rules, and it can go by the complaint. Somebody can complain that the one of our professional accountant belongs to ACCA is not reflecting the right behavior or ethical behavior, and then there's an investigation and everything will start. So they take that thing very close to their hearts, and it's a rule book thing which we
Right.
have to really rely on.
Right, but why only in ACCA, since you mentioned yourself as well that, and I personally know that since the professions that I've worked in, being a student as well, there's no, straight or strict definition of this is what you should implement as a person. Why only in ACCA? Why should not other departments adopt that as well?
I think as a code of ethics, you will find a couple of other professions who have got with
There's a code of-
there's
yeah.
a code of ethics, right?
Okay.
And there's a code of conduct as well. But whether it's really implemented, that's become
stand
a
by
question.
it is the
And to stand by.
right.
And then ethics are not rules; these are principles. And if even I'll go to the next level. If you talk about the parliamentarians, if you talk about the senators, if you talk about the government side, so in some areas, not all, and that was a surprise as well, in some areas they have got a code of ethics. But who is taking it seriously and really implementing it and making sure the people follow through that? There are examples where people are very ethical and there are people who are not. But as a representation of the institutions, it's become very difficult where to rely and where not to. That's become to the personal judgment, not to the institutional image, that if you are dealing with that institution, you are bound to find ethical behavior. This is not the reputation which most of the institutions enjoy in Pakistan at the moment.
Okay, I get that. But generally speaking, for Pakistan, what must count as an, generally speaking again, as an ethical issue? We're not talking in terms of a working place, working environment or school, as a citizen, as a Pakistani citizen.
I think you can demonstrate that through the examples. For example, observing the signals. That's a very fundamental thing. So there is a rule, but there is a principle that you should not be crossing the line if there is a red one, right? And similarly, if I'm dealing with a shopkeeper and I go in an everyday basis, and then there is a trust deficit which we see there, because we always have a doubt on the other person. So the starting point is that we have to trust our judgments, number one. Then we have to trust ourselves that we are, in any case, we are going to demonstrate the ethical behaviors which are right, and it should be based on the right value set. And even if the time is not good, I should be demonstrating the same value set or behavior which I should be doing in a good times as well.
Absolutely.
So as a social fiber, I think that's where it goes. If you say define that this is ethical or this is not, so I think we know that fundamentally. Our heart always tell us that we are doing something which is right or wrong, but there is a more information and knowledge which is available. And then again, going back to that, if you talk about a family, so you will know certain families, and families are known for their names, and whether they are a business family, they are good families, they are the business family, which may not enjoy the similar reputation which the other families are enjoying. It's just that their family practices which they carry out in everyday life, in their everyday interaction, socially or professionally.
Okay, now, but also, Mr. Sajid, since we are talking about it, let's look at it in a different way. Now, this is a two-sided story. The part where we mentioned that even, some higher officials and even people who work in different capacities and students are sometimes, they compromise their ethics, let's say, to achieve some other goals. But they're not the only people. The people who are offering incentives are there as well. I mean, I personally know. So my dad was in a ruling capacity for a very long time in southern Punjab. He used to serve in the armed forces. So anyone who wanted him to do something would come up with something in their hand, probably a basket full of, let's say, fruits, or probably, you know what I'm talking about, right? Flowers, or so many things that I cannot even mention over here. To which my dad would be flipped out. So he's not the sort of person, and which is why I absolutely thank him for imparting these values in us, because he's not the sort of person. He'd flip out. He'd be like, ये चीज़ें बाहर छोड़ के आओ मेरे ऑफिस के अंदर. Like, I'm here to help you. This is what my role is. So this is not only one side of the story. Both of the sides are actually sort of contributing to the same issue, right?
Definitely, it's not like a one-sided story. But once it's come to the like you gave a very right example where the person stood up for their values which they believe in, and that's what we call dilemma. Can we accept that gift as a cultural thing, or should I use my position and be very, very clear that this is something which is not acceptable? If I have to do something, I'll do it if it's right. I'll not do it because there is a basket of fruit sitting out there.
Exactly.
So this is normally yes, you will always get into that dilemmas where the people will be coming to you and incentivizing you, but how you will hold up your public trust or how you will really maintain those ethical values, that's come to an individual. Ethics start with the individual, then
Right.
goes to family, and then it forms society, and then it's formed nation.
Now, so very quickly, we're very short on time, but I want you to highlight this one thing. If we do stick to ethical values in different sectors of, inside Pakistan, is that going to eventually probably boost the economy as well?
I give you a very simple example: the work ethic, regardless whatever
Yeah.
profession you are in.
Yeah.
It changed the productivity. How much time I'm really using
Putting
and putting effort in, and how much I'm focused on the result. Changing a productivity of an individual definitely going to change the overall GDP. So
Right.
there is a direct link with the work ethics versus the GDP if you really compare it.
Right.
And if you are talking about export of services, then we are talking about the foreigners relying on your youth, that if they are technically savvy, they are IT, they are professional accountants, they are lawyers, if they are committing something over the net, they will deliver that as well. So this is also a trust factor which these ethical practices bring to Pakistan as well.
Right,
And that will change your export dynamics from a goods to services, and the youth is something which is our largest natural resource right now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Shahid, for being here. I'm sorry we're short on time, but you spoke so rightly. And for all those who missed, you actually missed on something very great. So, tune into PTV World again at 11:05 in the night. And I missed, very rightly said, it is an individual role. If you want your country to prosper, you have to stick to your ethical values individually as well, because the productivity is going to be great in the end. Write to us on our Facebook page, which is with the name of World This Morning. On Twitter, World This Morning without a G. On Dailymotion and YouTube, World This Morning, World This Morning. And repeat, as I said, 11:05 in the night. Stay tuned to PTV World for more shows, and take care. Good morning.